The rain was relentless, hammering Seattle's streets like it wanted to drown the city. I was 23, alone in my cramped Capitol Hill apartment, staring at the ceiling as the storm raged outside. Then I heard it, a soft creak, the kind that makes your heart stop, and I knew someone was in my room. I froze under the thin blanket, my breath shallow, eyes darting to the door I swore I'd locked. The shadow moved closer, deliberate but quiet, and my pulse thundered in my ears. It wasn't fear of danger that gripped me. It was the inexplicable certainty that whoever this was, they weren't here to hurt me. "Ethan," a voice whispered, low and familiar, cutting through the rain's drone. It was Lucas, my best friend since high school, the guy who'd been my anchor through every storm life threw at me. Lucas, with his sharp jawline and eyes that always seemed to see too much. Lucas, who I'd secretly loved for years but never dared tell. I sat up, the mattress creaking under me. "What the hell, man? It's 2 in the morning. My voice was rough, trying to mask the tremor in my chest. He stood at the foot of my bed, soaked from the rain, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, his blue sweater clinging to his lean frame. He looked broken, but there was something else in his eyes, something desperate, alive. "I couldn't sleep," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I needed to see you." He stepped closer, and the air shifted, heavy with unspoken things. I wanted to ask why he didn't just call, why he'd walked a mile in a downpour, but the words caught in my throat when he knelt beside my bed, his hand brushing mine. "Ethan," he said again, and this time his voice cracked. "I'm scared. I'm scared of what I feel, of what I've always felt." His fingers tightened around mine, and my heart slammed against my ribs. That night, Lucas didn't just come into my room. He tore down every wall I'd built around my heart, and what he did next changed everything. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sight of Lucas sprawled on my couch, his damp clothes swapped for one of my old hoodies. He looked too big for my tiny apartment, his long legs dangling over the armrest, but he fit in a way I couldn't explain. I rubbed my eyes, still reeling from the night before. He'd stayed until dawn, talking in whispers about things we'd never dared say aloud. About the glances we'd stolen in high school, the way my stomach flipped when he'd laughed too close to me, the nights I'd spent wondering if he felt the same. He'd confessed he'd been in love with me since we were 17, sitting on the bleachers after football practice, when I'd tossed him my water bottle and grinned like an idiot. He'd kept it inside, terrified of ruining us. But last night, he'd kissed me. Not a reckless, heat-of-the-moment thing, but slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing every second. My lips still burned thinking about it. "You gonna stare all day, or you want coffee?" Lucas's voice snapped me back, his smirk softening the tension in my chest. "Shut up," I muttered, grabbing the mug he slid across the counter. Our fingers brushed, and I swear the room got smaller. We didn't talk about the kiss, not yet. Instead, we fell into our usual rhythm, joking about my terrible cooking, arguing over which band was better, Nirvana or Pearl Jam. But every glance felt heavier, every laugh more fragile. I wanted to ask what this meant, where we went from here, but the words felt too big, too final. That afternoon, we walked to Volunteer Park, the rain finally easing into a misty drizzle. Seattle's skyline loomed in the distance, all glass and gray, but the park felt like ours, quiet, green, a bubble away from the world. We sat on a bench under an oak tree, and Lucas's knee bumped mine. Neither of us moved away. "I meant it," he said suddenly, staring at the ground. "Last night. I'm not taking it back." My throat tightened. "You know this isn't easy, right? People, they'll talk. My family. Screw them," he cut in, fierce. "Ethan, I've spent years pretending I don't feel this. I can't do it anymore." His hand found mine, and I didn't pull away. Not this time. But the world wasn't as simple as that bench. My parents, devout and traditional, had barely tolerated my city lifestyle in Seattle. Lucas's dad was worse, a retired cop who threw around words like disgrace when he thought no one was listening. And then there was the city itself, progressive on the surface but not immune to the stares, the whispers, the judgment. Days turned into weeks, and Lucas and I carved out a fragile new normal. Stolen kisses in my apartment, late-night drives to the Puget Sound, our hands brushing as we walked through Pike Place Market. But the weight of the world kept creeping in. One night, at a dive bar in Fremont, a guy in a flannel shirt muttered something under his breath as Lucas leaned too close to me. I didn't catch the words, but Lucas did. His jaw tightened, and before I could stop him, he was in the guy's face, all 6 feet of him radiating defiance. "Say it louder," Lucas snapped. "Go on." The bar went quiet, eyes on us. I grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Not worth it," I hissed, my heart racing. But it wasn't just the guy. It was the way everyone looked at us, like we were a problem to be solved. Outside, under the neon glow of the bar's sign, Lucas was shaking, not from fear, but from rage. "I'm not ashamed," he said, voice low. "I'm not hiding anymore." "I know," I said, but my stomach twisted. I wasn't ashamed either, but I wasn't ready for the fight I knew was coming. Not with my family, not with the world. The breaking point came a month later, at my sister's engagement party in Bellevue. I'd brought Lucas as my friend, too scared to call him anything else. My mom's smile was tight, my dad's handshake with Lucas colder than the November air. Halfway through the night, my cousin Jake, liquored up and loud, cornered me in the kitchen. "So, what's with you and your buddy?" he sneered, the word dripping with venom. "You know what people are saying, right?" I wanted to punch him, to scream that I loved Lucas, that it was real and right and none of his business. But I froze, the weight of my family's expectations crushing me. Lucas overheard, his face unreadable as he grabbed his coat and walked out. I found him outside, leaning against his beat-up Toyota, staring at the stars. "You didn't say anything," he said, not looking at me. "You just stood there." I didn't know what to say, I admitted, my voice small. He turned, eyes blazing. "You could have said you love me, that I'm not some dirty secret." The words hit like a fist. I reached for him, but he stepped back, and the space between us felt like a chasm. "I do love you," I said, but it sounded weak, too late. "Then prove it," he said, and got in his car. I didn't see Lucas for a week. He didn't answer my calls, didn't show up at our usual spots. The silence was louder than the rain ever was, and it tore me apart. I'd spent years hiding who I was, telling myself it was easier, safer. But losing Lucas wasn't safe. It was a slow bleed. I drove to his apartment in Wallingford, my hands shaking on the wheel. When he opened the door, he looked tired, his eyes red-rimmed. "What do you want, Ethan?" "I want you," I said, the words spilling out. "I'm done hiding. I'm done being scared." He didn't move, just stared at me like he was waiting for me to break. So I kept going. I told my parents. Last night, I told them I'm gay, that I love you, that I'm not apologizing for it. His eyes widened, and for the first time in days, I saw a flicker of hope. What did they say? "They're not happy," I admitted. "But I don't care anymore. I choose you." Lucas's shoulders sagged, like he'd been holding his breath for years. He stepped forward, and I pulled him into my arms, the world fading to nothing but the warmth of him. We stood there, in the doorway, the rain starting again, but this time it didn't feel like drowning. It felt like renewal. Months later, we sat on that same bench in Volunteer Park, our hands intertwined, no longer afraid of who might see. The world hadn't changed. There were still stares, still judgment, but we had. Lucas leaned his head on my shoulder, and I knew, no matter what came next, we'd face it together. Because that night, when Lucas came into my room, he didn't just change me. He showed me who I could be, someone brave enough to love, to fight, to live. And that was worth everything.